The history of coffee in England, from bean to brew. Coffee, a ubiquitous beverage enjoyed by millions across the world, has a rich and fascinating history. While its origins can be traced back to the ancient coffee houses of the Middle East, the journey of coffee to England and its subsequent evolution into a thriving coffee culture in the 17th century is a tale worth exploring. The origins of coffee. Coffee's story begins in the highlands of Ethiopia, where, according to legend, a goat herder named Kaldi discovered the energizing effects of coffee beans when his goats became unusually lively after consuming them. This discovery eventually led to the cultivation of coffee plants and the creation of the first coffee beverage. Coffee was embraced in Arab culture, and by the 15th century, it had spread to Persia, Egypt, and the Ottoman Empire. Coffee houses, birth of a cultural phenomenon. The first coffee houses, known as caffeinate, appeared in the Middle East during the 16th century. These establishments quickly became hubs for intellectual discussions, music, and games, creating a unique atmosphere for social interaction. Coffee houses were seen as places where people could gather, exchange ideas, and engage in conversation, making them an essential part of Middle Eastern culture. Coffee's arrival in England. Coffee made its way to England in the mid-17th century. While it was initially met with skepticism, it soon captured the imagination of the English elite and the general public alike. In 1652, the first coffee house in England, called the Angel, opened its doors in Oxford. Coffee was initially perceived as an exotic and medicinal beverage, with claims that it could cure various ailments. The first coffee house in London, Park Roses, opened in 1652, and it quickly became a centre of social and intellectual activity. Coffee houses were often referred to as penny universities because, for the price of a cup of coffee, one could engage in enlightening conversations and gain access to a wealth of knowledge. These coffee houses attracted scholars, writers, merchants, and politicians, creating a dynamic and vibrant cultural landscape. The rise of coffee houses in 17th century England. The success of the first coffee houses in London sparked a coffee house boom. By the late 17th century, there were hundreds of coffee houses scattered throughout the city. Each of these establishments had its own unique atmosphere and clientele, catering to various interests and pursuits. For example, Lloyd's Coffee House was frequented by shipowners and insurance brokers and would later evolve into the famous Lloyd's of London insurance market. As coffee houses continued to proliferate, they became known for specific areas of discussion and expertise. Some were hubs for scientific and philosophical discourse, while others were known for political debates and the exchange of news and information. This diversification gave rise to a fascinating blend of cultures within the city, as coffee houses became synonymous with intellectual and social interaction. Women in coffee houses. While coffee houses were predominantly male spaces, women eventually made their presence felt. The penny post service, initiated by Edward Lloyd of Lloyd's Coffee House in the late 17th century, allowed women to send letters and receive correspondences in a secure manner. This move towards accessibility eventually encouraged a more diverse clientele. The decline of coffee houses. The glory days of coffee houses as centers of intellectual and social activity began to wane by the early 18th century. Several factors contributed to their decline. The most significant was the rise of the British tavern and pub culture. As these establishments became more popular, they offered a broader range of alcoholic beverages, making them more appealing to a broader clientele. The coffee houses themselves also played a role in their decline by becoming increasingly exclusive. They began to charge higher entry fees, becoming more elitist and less accessible to the general public. Simultaneously, the British government imposed heavy taxes on coffee, making it less affordable. These factors combined to push coffee houses out of the mainstream and into the margins of English society. Legacy and revival. While coffee houses as they were known in the 17th century no longer exist in the same form, their legacy continues to influence modern coffee culture in England. The tradition of engaging in intellectual and social discussions over a cup of coffee remains a cherished aspect of contemporary cafe culture. Coffee houses have experienced a revival in recent years, with specialty coffee shops offering a unique space for people to gather, work, and engage in meaningful conversations. These modern coffee houses often emphasize the artisanal aspects of coffee, focusing on quality and flavor, akin to the coffee houses of yore. In conclusion, the history of coffee in England is a remarkable journey that spans centuries. From its introduction in the 17th century to the rise and eventual decline of coffee houses, the impact of coffee on English culture and society is undeniable. As coffee houses continue to serve as hubs for social interaction, they carry forward the legacy of their historical counterparts, celebrating the rich history of coffee in England while embracing the contemporary coffee culture that is loved by people around the world today.